Amen. Shabbat Shalom. We have some guests. We're very excited. Well, I don't think they're guests because they're part of the family now. So Marjorie, stand up for a moment. Marjorie Aarons, Danit Silverman, Dana Peck, who's going to become Dana Silverman. We're very excited because we have a family gathering here, and we're anticipating our chuppah in just a few weeks. And we're thrilled that the Peck family has joined us here to celebrate Shabbat together. So thank you very much. You may be seated. We're turning now to the Shalom Aleichem in the Siddur. Shalom Aleichem is on page number 5. And again, if you're just walking in, please make sure you have a song sheet found on the table at the rear, because we sing a little bit. We incorporate contemporary pieces into our Malachei Amlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Vo'achem l'shalom Malachei Shalom Malachei Elyon Mimelech Malachei Amlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Baruch Hu Shalom Malachei Shalom Malachei Elyon Mimelech Malachei Amlochim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Tzedchem l'shalom, malachei shalom, malachei elyon, mimelech, malachei amlochim hakadosh baruch hu. Now turning to L'chun Ranana on page number 11. 3,000 years ago, somebody said, it's important for us to come together and sing, and that sentiment was incorporated into this psalm, which later came to be a doorway into Shabbat itself. So 3,000 years ago, a poet said, we need to sing together. And 2,500 years after that innovation, we created Kabbalat Shabbat. L'chun ranena, l'chun ranena, l'chun ranena, l'Adonai. L'chun ranena, l'chun ranena, l'chun ranena, l'Adonai. Naria, naria, letzur yishenu, nekadma fana b'toda. Naria, naria, letzur yishenu, v'izmirah naria lo. L'chun ranena, l'chun ranena, l'chun ranena, l'Adonai. L'chun ranena, l'chun ranena, l'chun ranena, l'Adonai. Naria, naria, letzur yishenu, nekadma fana b'toda. Naria, naria, letzur yishenu, b'izmirah naria lo. L'chun ranena, l'chun ranena, l'chun ranena, l'Adonai. L'chun ranena, l'chun ranena, l'chun ranena, l'Adonai. On the English side. Let us go and sing to Adonai. Let us trumpet and praise to our protector. Filled with thanks, let us greet God, raising our voice in song. Great is Adonai, a greater sovereign than all other deities. God's hands form the earth's deep. Mountain crests, too, are God's work. The sea is God's, for God made it. Dry land was fashioned by God's hands. Come then, let us bow and kneel. Let us bend our knees in the presence of Adonai, who formed us. Arbrim shana kut v'dor v'marm tolev v'hem v'hem l'dirachayim. Asher nishpati v'apim v'von el menuchati. If you look at the last line on page 12, you see this double element, an element of joy and an element of sorrow. And perhaps it is that when we're joyous, we sometimes turn our thoughts to sorrow. And when we're experiencing sorrow, we aspire to joy, which is why I have this other song sheet here. It's Sow in Tears, Reap in Joy. It's by Debbie Friedman. And this modern piece, which we sing occasionally here in Shul, is actually a contemporary transformation of one of the Psalms, Psalm 127. Sow in tears, reap in joy. The psalm that gives birth to this piece is asserting a faith posture that you and I can see past our experiences of sorrow and loss and anticipate a coming time with joy and happiness and uplift. Turning to Yismach Shemayim on page 14, the heavens themselves are singing along with us as we move from perhaps a slightly lower ebb to a higher point. Yismach Shemayim on page 14. Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, V'tagel haaretz, Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, V'tagel haaretz, Yeramayam, 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 Omalo, Yeramayam, 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 Omalo, Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, V'tagel haaretz, Yeramayam, 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 Omalo, Yeramayam, 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 Omalo, Yeramayam, 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 Omalo, Yeramayam, 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 Omalo. And on page 21, Mizmor, which is, you might say, a goad, a prompt. We really have to sing. We have to use our mouths, our minds, our bodies. Page 21. Mizmor leDavid, Habul Adonai B'Elim, Habul Adonai Kavod Ba'oz, Habul Adonai Kavod Shemo, Hishtachavu Adonai Badrat Kodesh, Kol Adonai Al Amoyim El Kavod Hirim, Adonai Amayim Rabim, Kol Adonai Ba'koach, Kol Adonai Be'adar, Kol Adonai Shaber Arazim, Vaishaber Adonai Et Arsei Halbanon, Vayarkinem Kamo Egel, Lebanon B'Siryon, Kamo V'Reimim, Kol Adonai Chotzev Labotesh, Kol Adonai Yachil Midbar, Yachil Adonai Midbar Kadesh, Kol Adonai Yechol El Ayalot, Vayechesof Yarot, Vayecholo Kulo Omer Kavod, Adonai Lamabul Yashav, Vayeshev Adonai Melech Leolam, Adonai Oz Li'amo Yitein, Adonai Yevarech Et Amo V'Shalom. And on page 23, the first three stanzas, and on page 25, the last three stanzas. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, pnei Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmeyanu el hamyuchad, Adonai echad Ushmo echad l'shem ol tiferet v'lit hila lechad ori lekrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela lekrat Shabbat lechoven elcha Ki mekor habracha merosh mikerem nesucha sof maaseh b'machshava techila lecha dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nikabela mikdash melech ir melucha Kumitzeim itochafecha Rav lach shevet b'yem kabacha V'oyachamol alayechem la Lecha dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nikabela V'hayu limshisa shosayich V'rachaku komavalayich Yasis alayich Elohayich Kimsos chatan al kala Lecha dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nikabela Yamin usmol tifrotzi Ve'et Adonai taritzi al Yarish ben partzi V'nismecha v'nagila Lecha dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nikabela Boi v'shalom ateret bala Gam b'simcha u'v'tzahala toch emunei am segula Boi chala lecha dodi likrat kala Pnei Shabbat nikabela Remaining standing, our legs pulled us up. And we're now in a standing posture. Our legs pulled us up to welcome Shabbat itself. And if you turn to page 27, you'll see the psalm that for the past 500 years has been, at this point in the service, greeting Shabbat, for the past 3,000 years, nicknamed Awareness of Shabbat. And it's the last two stanzas that continue to take hold of me. It's on page 28 on the English side. We're now standing, and our bodies are telling us that we are like great trees. The righteous flourish like the date palm, thrive like a cedar in Lebanon, planted in the house of Adonai. They flourish in our God's courtyards. In old age, they remain fruitful, still fresh and bountiful, proclaiming Adonai is upright. Tzadikatam yifrach ke'erez balbanon yiska shetulim beveit Adonai B'chatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu Od yenuvon beseva Dishenim verananim yeyo lehagid Ki ashar Adonai Tzuri v'lo Remain standing. The Borchu on page 39b. Baruch et Adonai amavorach. Baruch Hanam Barak Leolam Vaed. You may be seated. The first bracha on the English side. Baruch atah Adonai, our God, sovereign of time and space. You completed your work of creation on the seventh day, calling this day from one evening to the next the Holy Shabbat, and gave this day of rest in all its holiness to your people Israel, creator of day and night, ruling light before darkness and darkness from light, making day pass and bringing on the evening, distinguishing day from night. Adonai Tzvaot is your name, living and ever-present God. May your rule be with us forever and ever. Baruch atah Adonai, who brings each evening's dusk. U'ma'avir yom u'me'evi layla, u'ma'avdil ben yom u'vein layla, Adonai tzvaot shmo, el chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu olam v'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'ma'ariv aravim. A moment of silence for the second bracha on page 40. Chayenu v'orech yameinu v'hem negeh yomam v'layla v'yabatachal tasir mimenu l'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. Page 41. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Ve'yavto et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha v'hayom hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha u'v'alektecha v'aderech u'v'shachbecha v'kumecha u'kishartam lot al yadecha v'hayu letotafot beinecha u'ktavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha. A moment of silence on page number 42. Adonai Elohechem emet. And on page 44, the Michamocha. U'malchuto beratzon kiblu aleihem Hashem, Moshe u'Miriam u'Bnei Yisrael, Lecha anu shira, b'simcha rabba v'yamru chulam, mi chamocha po'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, noratilot osei felep, malchut tekara ovanecha, bokeh yam lifnei Moshe, zeli anu v'yamro, Adonai imloch le'olam ba'ed, v'ne'emar kifad Adonai et Yaakov, u'galol mi'ad chazak mimenu, baruch ata Adonai, gal Yisrael. On page 45, the Hashkivenu, it's a reminder that every one of us must be attuned to the needs of everyone else. We don't pray only for our own sense of security and calm as we prepare to go to sleep this evening. We pray for the security and calm for everyone. Imagine if everyone on the planet were to consider the needs of everyone else on the planet simultaneously. What might happen? Much more than prayer. On the English side, page 45. Hashkivenu Adonai, our God, to sleep peacefully. Awaken us to life, O Sovereign. Spread over us your canopy of peace. Restore us with your good counsel, and save us for the sake of your name. Shield us. Remove from us enemies, pestilence, sword, starvation, and sorrow. Remove the evil forces that surround us. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings. For you, God, watch over and deliver us. And you, God, are sovereign, merciful, and compassionate. Ensure our going and coming for life and peace, now and forever. May you spread over us your canopy of peace. Baruch atah Adonai, who spreads the canopy of peace over us. Ushmor tzeitenu v'oleinu l'chaim l'shalom et aviad olam ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha baruch atah Adonai haporei sukat shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael v'al Yerushalayim. Page 46. V'shamra v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam barit olam. V'shamra v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam barit olam. B'nei B'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam, oti le'olam, oti le'olam. V'shamra v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam barit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai, asa Adonai, et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz, v'shamra v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam barit olam. Uvayom hashvi Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, v'shamra v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam barit olam. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbav v'todei b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael b'gala uv'izman kariv v'imero amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevarach L'olam li'olmei olmaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitparv v'yinaseh v'yidadar v'yidaleh v'yitalal Shemei dekudesha brichu Le'lam karbechata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran v'yolma v'yimiru amen. As we rise in a moment for the silent Amidah, beginning on page 47, concluded on page 52, just a thought. Looking at the opening stanza, it's Elohei Avraham, Elohei Sarah, God of our father Abraham, our mother Sarah, and Isaac and Rebekah and Jacob and Rachel and Leah. And of course, these people died 3,800 years ago. And someone might ask the question, why are we talking about the God of somebody who died? And I would say, consider all the messages, all the lessons that we've learned from our ancestors in our recent years, those who've introduced us to the profound lessons of life, of how to live, how to grow, how to nurture, how to share. And true enough, many of them are gone, but their messages live on. And so now, during this silent moment, we can pause and reflect about all that we've gained, the legacy of the past. And that legacy is rooted in Abraham and Sarah, 3,800 years. And the next part of the thought is, how do we contribute to that legacy on into the future so that we leave a mark years after we're gone? Page 47 through 52, the traditional text or a few moments of silent prayer. a contemporary take on Shalom Rav, found on page 51. This is by Meir Finkelstein. It's the concluding bracha of the Friday evening, or every evening, Amida, a prayer for great peace. Shalom Rav by Meir Finkelstein.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam.
Full Kaddish on page 54. Yitkara v'yitkara shemei Rabba b'almas v'imru amen Yehei shemei Rabba mavorach l'olam l'yalmei almaya yitborach Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'sefer harav shmei kudisho brichu l'elam min kol berchata v'shirata tishbachata v'shmeiru amen Titkabel tzlaton v'shmeiru amen yishchimru amen Useh shalom b'momav v'yaseh shalom l'em v'shmeiru amen. Earlier today, I received a phone call from a friend, and he shared with me news that an acquaintance died just a few days ago. And this friend came by perhaps about a month ago and asked me to include this acquaintance's name in our Misha Barak, our list of prayers. And so, of course, we've been praying next to the family, you might say. I first met this man, Henry, and I haven't seen him in decades, perhaps 25 years ago, and our paths have crossed a couple of times. And sometimes, as you know, when your life path crosses someone else, even if you don't see that person, even if you don't hear from that person, once in a great while, you remember something about that person, or for a reason that you don't understand, his or her face appears in your memory. And my friend on the phone went on to mention that Henry is the brother of a friend of ours, which I didn't know. So today I called our friend to extend my condolences, and we spoke a little bit. And she asked, how did you know about Henry? And I said, so-and-so called me a month ago. He stopped by actually, and so we've been praying alongside your family for the past month. And she was uplifted by that. And it occurred to me that because Mark called me to tell about Henry, who's the brother of Sarah, our lives are entwined and connected. And as a result of Mark's calling me to tell me about Henry, so I contacted Sarah, Sarah's heart is now a little bit lighter. And the sorrow that she bears within will always remain, but it's a bit more manageable. That's the function of entwining lives one with the next. This is on my mind because today is October 29th, and the day before yesterday was October 27th. And 3 years ago, there was a shooting at a temple in Pittsburgh. And we all now immediately go back to the Tree of Life in Pittsburgh. And perhaps we're remembering what it means to have learned that 11 Jewish people in synagogue on a Shabbos morning were killed, and 2 more were wounded, and 5 police officers were wounded on that day. And the outpouring of support and of compassion and human caring across the United States and the entire civilized, loving, caring world was breath-giving. And I know that people living in different communities experience that touch, that concern, when neighbors, when friends, when acquaintances whom normally we don't really remember, don't really take stock of, came up to us in one way or another, whether in person or on phone call or video or text, and said, I'm with you. I'm sharing my heart, and I'm taking hold of a little bit of your sorrow. And 3 years ago today, this synagogue was full. And in a life before COVID, when ordinarily those back walls are closed, we opened the door, and within a day and a half of my making a few phone calls to some clergy, asking them to come to a shared service and asking them to put out the word, within a day and a half of Ricky's reaching out and a few other people reaching out, emails, phone calls, and Facebook messages, there were 600 plus people in this room. And there were those who reached out and went out to every corner of this room, every corner of this building, and brought every chair into this room with all the walls open, and there was standing room only. And if the fire marshal had come in to shut us down, he would have had to have waited because the mayor, police chief, and all members of varying levels of national and state law enforcement were here, along with clergy, and along with a lot of our neighbors, people just from homes, people whom we know, from synagogue, from churches, from the mosque in town. And when those 600 people came into our building, and they stood here, and they shared their tears, and their sorrow, and their love, and their support, many of whom were friends, and many of whom were acquaintances, their lives and ours became entwined and intertwined. And later there was a candlelight vigil in the parking lot, and 100 plus people stepped forward and held candles that were distributed by friends from a church who organized that on their own. And I've never seen such an experience. And after varying members of clergy and law enforcement and friends in the neighborhood stood forward and shared messages, we were getting ready to go outside. And I offered a concluding prayer, and people stood, and I opened the ark, and I said, all of you here today are sharing expressions of love and of comfort, encouragement, and care, and your presence and your words, spoken and silent, are now going into our ark and joining our Torah scrolls. And ever after, your words and your prayers and your presence and your concern and your love will always be within these Torah scrolls and within that ark. And no matter how many times we open and close that ark, and no matter how many times we take the Torahs out and put them back in, your prayers and your love and your comfort as friends and acquaintances will never diminish, will never decrease, and will always remain with us. And later I learned from an acquaintance of an acquaintance that a year later somebody was remembering those words, that their presence had become part of our Torah scrolls. Their presence had become part of the prayers warehoused within our ark. And somehow, because acquaintances and friends crossed paths of lives with each other, our lives became entwined and intertwined, and it made the sorrow a little bit more manageable. The grief is still here and will never fully diminish, but we're able to walk along because there's love and caring, consideration and kindness. And this is again in my mind, not only because it's 3 years ago from today in our own local community, as well as across the U.S. and the civilized, loving, caring world, but because of a little passage which is in our Torah reading for this week. For you and I, in this week's Torah reading, are now invited to the very first Jewish funeral. Abraham is next to his wife Sarah. Abraham is about to bury his wife Sarah. And Abraham wants to bury his wife in a certain place. And many times, often, when rabbis and teachers talk about this specific passage, this aliyah in the Torah, they speak of what it means to bury and so on. But I want to point out something a little bit different. Abraham goes to a man named Ephron, who lives in an area, it's called Chet or Chiti, not Chet on Yom Kippur, different spelling. And he wants to bury his wife in this spot, in a cave in a field. And so he's about to speak to Ephron, and the whole clan turns out. And in the presence of the whole clan, as Abraham is speaking to the community, and you and I would probably guess that the reason the clan shows up is that this is their method of what we would call notarizing the transaction or certifying the deal, that it is recorded in City Hall. But the clan says in one voice, a shared voice, and their acquaintances, Kvor et meitecha b'mivchar, which literally means, choose any place within where we are and bury your beloved one here. And in the narrow sense, it means pick any grave in the cemetery and it's yours. But in the broad sense, I want to go back to that phrase, bury your loved one amongst us. Bury your loved one amongst us. And these are neighbors, and these are acquaintances. And prior to this event, their lives may have never crossed paths. But at this critical moment for Abraham, their lives are now entwined and intertwined because of the care, the concern, the humanity. And Abraham leaves that place, that experience, uplifted and comforted. And that's what you and I have within us, the power to lift up. We will never have the power to stop sorrow or loss or death. But we will have the power to transform how other people respond to and interact with and appreciate the loss, the sorrow, and the grief. And for some of us, merely as acquaintances, and for others as friends, let us take note of what it means to entwine our lives with the lives of others. Think of the power that we have to bring love and hope and comfort into our world. May we so live. And we say amen. And at this moment, I do mention the names of the police officers who were wounded on that occasion. At the synagogue, the Tree of Life, the police officers were named Timothy Matson, Daniel Mead, Anthony Burke, and Michael Smidja. And then later on, when we mention the names for Kaddish, we'll also include those whose names were lost, whose lives were lost. For now, we rise the Aleinu. The Aleinu is found here in the Siddur on page number 56, page 56. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet gedula le'otzer breshit, shelo asanik goyei aratzot, velo zamanu k'mishpachot adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu ke'achol amonam, v'anachnu korim, umishtachavim, umodim, lifnei melech, malchei amlochim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shehu noteh shamayim v'yosei haaretz, u'moshav yikaral b'shamayim imal, u'shchinatu zo, v'gavei meromim, Hu Eloheinu enod, emet malkeinu evezulato, kakatu b'torato, v'yadat ayom v'shevota el levavecha, ki Adonai hu Elohim, b'shamayim mimal, v'al haaretz mitachat enod. Kakatu b'toratecha, Adonai yimloch le'olam voed, v'ne'emar, v'haya Adonai, le'melech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, Shema echad. Mourner's Kaddish will be on page number 58, in a moment. It is our practice to mention the names of our loved ones who commemorated here in our shul this time. We remember Sarah Layden, Joseph Witzer, Carrie Mayer Homanoff, Lena Levine, Zita Bloom, Molly Gurich, Ricky Sussman, Thomas Schultz, Seal Spindle, Rebecca Hirsch, Morris Brook, Nathan Siegel, Bessie Dittman, Donald Lassner, Phil Ladd, Cal Liebeskind, Louis Morningstar, Peter Leon Sussman, Samuel Goldrich, Lloyd Maklovitz, Alan Sherman, Gertrude Maisel, Sylvan Sachs, Yetta Lee, Bunya Mishaloff, Paul Buckstein, Alexander Grodnick. We remember those whose lives were taken from all of us at the Tree of Life Synagogue shooting: Joyce Feinberg, Richard Gottfried, Rose Mallinger, Jerry Rabinowitz, Cecil Rosenthal, David Rosenthal, Bernice Simon, Sylvan Simon, Daniel Stein, Melvin Wax, Irving Younger. Are there any other names to mention this evening? And perhaps you at home have a name to mention at this time. Those reciting Kaddish are invited to rise. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Amen. Be'olma divara chirute v'yamlich malchute. B'chayechon v'yomechon v'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbo mevorach la'olam u'l'olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata Ta'amiran ba'olma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim olenu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav hu ya'aseh shalom olenu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Our prayers join the prayers of others. Our hearts join with the hearts of others. And we bring kindness into the world. We'll conclude in just a moment with the last song. It's on the song sheet, "O Guide My Steps." We'll be singing that in just a moment. And after that, we'll make Kiddush. We've got wine and grape juice and challah on the back table. And we'll have a chance to make Kiddush together. Just a couple of reminders again, of course, tomorrow, davening from 10 to about 11:15, 11:30. And Zoom Havdalah at 7 p.m., Alabama Community Virtual Havdalah. And Monday, Tanakh studies at noon on Zoom. Tuesday, Adult Hebrew at 3 o'clock on Zoom. And the Tuesday Spirit discussion is what makes you smile about being Jewish on Zoom. That's Tuesday at 5. And Thursday is story time for kids on Zoom, but that might be moving to a different date and time. We're still working that out. And for now, we'll conclude with "Oh, Guide My Steps," the song sheet.
Guide my steps and help me find my way. I need your shelter now. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps and help me make this day a song of praise to you. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps.
Ufros Aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha. Ufros Aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha.
Oh, guide my steps and help me find my way. I need your shelter now. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps and help me make this day a song of praise to you. Rock me in your arms and guide my steps.
And now we'll make Kiddush in a moment. If you'd like to prepare a glass of wine and grape juice at the back and a piece of challah. Kiddush in the Siddur is on page number 55, and perhaps those of you at home are joining in also. You're invited to pour a glass of wine or grape juice, and we'll make Kiddush together. Okay. We'll make Kiddush and Amotzi together.
second. Did you think about Zooming your mom into this thing tonight? Do you want my help setting up a computer so you can bring your mom in on Zoom?
I think she might be asleep. She was looking tired. I'll ask her, but thank you, appreciate it. Thank you, man, thank you. I'll call her after this and I'll see if she wants, but she sounded like she was going to sleep early tonight when I spoke with her a couple of hours ago.
She's gone once. She's probably dead.
She might be asleep already. She sounded tired when I spoke with her a couple of hours ago. But thank you, man, thank you, appreciate it, thank you. And now Kiddush on page number 55. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei parei hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshana b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'yavav v'ratzon inchilano zikaron maseh reshit ki hu yom techila lamekra kodesh zecher litziat mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta v'otanu kirashta mikol amim v'shabbat kodshecha v'yavav v'ratzon hinchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-Shabbat. Michael, do you want to do the Hamotzi? Shmo. Amen. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. To all who are joining in, thank you for joining us this evening. May you go into this Shabbat, this zone of God's favorite time, with a sense of rest and peace, and know that you are part of our hearts and our experience. May you be blessed with love and joy. Litro until we see each other again.